Hello! It's me, Red. Did you miss me? I know you missed me. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Today I'm going to be reading some r/entitled people stories. Yes? Excited. I know. I'm so excited too. Okay. Here we go. Karen declares war on my parents for cutting down a tree on their own property. I've been living away from home ever since graduating from college. My parents both retired recently, and last summer they decided to use some of the money they'd saved up to finally build their dream retirement home in New Orleans, where they've been living for the past 10 years. I come from a very tight-knit family, so I still talk to my parents every week, and they were so excited when they said they'd already picked out the location where they wanted the house built. It was an empty lot in a nice neighborhood where a house had been demolished not long before due to age. And the previous owner, who was pretty wealthy and owned numerous properties around the city, decided that the lot was more worth without the house on it. Anyway, my parents snapped it up as soon as it came on the market. But not long after construction began, they realized they were building their dream house right next door to the lair of a wild Karen. The trouble started when my parents had to cut down a large oak tree that sat in front of the lot. It was a real beauty too, one of those big southern live oaks, and although they didn't want to, they knew they had to remove it because it was in the way. No one likes to cut down a big, beautiful tree, and believe me, if there was a way to avoid doing it without impeding the construction, my parents would have taken it. So they called a tree removal service and the tree was soon gone. Well, a few days after the tree had been cut down, my dad was on the property talking to some of the construction guys and making sure everything was going smoothly. He was going back to his car when he saw a woman in her late 50s walk out of the house next door and head to her mailbox. My dad, let's call him John, is a pretty chill, laid-back guy who likes to be on good terms with everyone, so he walked over and introduced himself. "Hi," he said, holding out his hand. "My name's John, and my wife and I are going to be your neighbours once our house is finished. I just wanted to come over and say hi and introduce myself. It's nice to meet you. What's your name?" Karen glanced at the extended hand, then looked up at my dad and glared at him.
"My name is none of your business," she snapped. "I'm not going to shake your hand because of COVID. And even if there was no COVID, I still wouldn't shake your hand because you people ruined my life when you cut down my tree. I still can't believe how selfish you are. You should both be ashamed of yourselves."
My dad was taken aback by this and pointed out that Karen already had a nice big oak tree in her backyard, but Karen ignored him and stalked back inside her house. She never explained why she thought she was the owner of the tree that had been cut down. Not once. And whenever my parents asked about it, she refused to answer. I guess it's just one of those things we'll never know, like what really happened to the lost Roanoke colony or the fate of D.B. Cooper. My parents met some of their other neighbours later that day, including a nice elderly couple who lived in the other house next door to Karen's. And when my dad told them what happened, the neighbours said Karen was like that to everyone, and no one in the neighbourhood liked her. They also said that Karen had been nasty to them for a long time, and they were in the process of selling their house because they couldn't stand living next door to her anymore. Karen soon began living up to her reputation. For months, whenever my parents would visit the house to see how the construction was coming along, she'd find something to complain or confront them about. One time, she said the construction workers were being too loud and threatened to call the police, even though it was the middle of the day. Another time, she said that the construction company was using illegal immigrants as cheap labor and threatened to call ICE and have the whole project shut down. My dad mentioned this to the owner of the company, and the owner sent Karen a formal letter threatening a lawsuit if she tried. I don't know if there are any actual grounds for a lawsuit, but the threat must have worked because ICE never showed up. Oh, and then there was the time she tried to have my parents' car towed for illegally parking when they parked by the curb of their still unfinished house. The first my parents knew about this was when the tow truck showed up, where the driver took one look at where my parents were parked and told Karen he'd send her a bill for wasting his time if she called him again. I could go on. Karen did everything she could think of to try and interfere. She was absolutely relentless in her crusade to avenge a tree she never even owned. Happily, the house was completed despite her best efforts, and my parents finally moved in not long after the holidays. My mum told me later that she caught Karen watching them bitterly from her window as they were taking some of their boxes inside. She was concerned that Karen might keep going and try something else, but I guess Karen was too busy wallowing in her self-pity over her failure or something because things were actually quiet for a while. But a few weeks ago, things changed. New Orleans had some really bad weather lately due to the winter storms that are battering much of the southern US right now. And one night, one of those storms was so powerful that it knocked over the tree in Karen's backyard. It missed falling onto her house, but it didn't miss falling onto her shiny new Jaguar and crushing it like a beer can. According to my folks, Karen didn't discover what had happened until the following morning, when she came outside and saw the pile of scrap metal that used to be her car. She threw back her head and let out a primal scream like something out of The Exorcist. She had to pay a tree removal service to get rid of the tree, and then she had to pay for a tow truck to get rid of the car too. And then she had to get a rental car too. Karen put her property up for sale and moved out not long afterward. Everyone in the neighborhood was glad to see her go, and my parents enjoyed watching her drive off into the sunset from the front porch of their amazing new house. Whoa, that's karma right there. Like, she was like so obsessed with the tree, and then the other tree got her. But, okay, there's a storm, and you have a car. I don't care what kind of car, any kind of car. And there's a big tree. Where do you park your car? Do you park it under the big tree? Because I wouldn't do that. That seems really, really dumb. All right, ready for the next story? Entitled Pharmacy Guy Can't Wait His Turn. Last week, my wife had thyroid surgery and I went to pick up her medication right before I got to take her home, and I met one in the wild. I walked into the pharmacy and took a number from the little electronic machine and got number 468, and the screen said 126. Not a big deal, as they usually have 2 different queues for the pharmacists. I must be on a different numbering track. I sit down in the dead empty pharmacy and noted it was odd that nobody else was there, and I just waited. Usually the place is packed, but it was the end of the day. Then an older man came in and took a number. He doesn't even get to his seat before saying out loud that, "This is ridiculous." As he walked to his seat, he keeps talking out loud that, "This is stupidly ridiculous. I'm not going to stand for it." I wasn't sure initially what he was mad about. I've been there about 5 minutes longer than him, and his butt hasn't even settled in his chair, so we haven't waited long at all. I'm in my late 40s, and I think because of my age, he thought I'd agree with him because he kept talking about how he's not waiting that long. He kept trying to catch my eye. He was having an entire villain monologue, working himself up. I gave him one of those side eyes and went back to reading my phone. He sits a grand total of 5 minutes or less, and then launches up out of his chair, stalks over to the windows where 2 pharmacists are working. He wasn't willing to wait even a few minutes. "This is ridiculous. I have number 469 and the number is 126. I'm not dealing with your broken numbers," he literally yelled at them. I couldn't hear what they said due to distance, but he responded, "Well, it sure looks broken. I don't have to stand for this." It goes back and forth with him yelling and swearing, and eventually he goes back to his seat and starts talking about broken machines. Before he really settles into his seat, the automated voice calls for 468, my number, and I got up to get my wife's meds. I got a very young pharmacist training a new girl who was kind and nice despite being screamed at by the angry old guy. I've been to the pharmacy a lot this year, and they're always super nice and respectful. As I left, I apologized that they had to deal with the angry guy next, and the pharmacist and the girl he was training laughed so hard, so at least I brightened their day. I doubt the angry guy heard me, and there's no real climax to the story, just another entitled jerk who thinks they don't have to follow the bare minimum of expected behavior. I mean, heaven help you if you have to wait for something. Like, my goodness, everything's supposed to come to you now, right? Ugh. You know, like in this case, it was an older person, but I've seen just as much with like people my age and younger. Like, some people are just truly entitled. I don't think it's a generational thing. I think it's like literally just some people are really entitled. Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing about those /entitled people today. And I hope you enjoyed my reading. Read by Red, that's what it's called. That's who I am, and that's what I did. Please give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe as well. And you can always watch more videos because I have lots more videos. Thanks so much for watching today. Have a good rest of your day.